For this exercise, we're going to focus on the glute medius. Now, the glute medius is a part of your posterior, your butt, but it's one of the areas that even when that area is getting worked, which is debatable because quite often it's very underused and underdeveloped, but most people will then start focusing on their glute maximus, which is the big part that you sit on. The glute medius is the part that basically stabilizes everything from the outside. So it's very small, or it's relatively small muscle compared to your glute maximus, and it sits on the outer portion of the glute maximus. You're going to feel it through this exercise anyway, so you'll get to know exactly where it is if you try this out. As I say, the reason that it's important is because the hip socket is a ball and socket joint. So essentially you've got the top of the leg connecting in to where the hip sits, like this. And rather than it being, like an elbow joint or something, which is just a straight hinge and it doesn't have a lot of range of motion, this has a lot of motion. And as a result, you get a lot of range of motion in your leg, which is great because it means you can move in many directions and not hurt yourself. The problem with it is that if you don't have a lot of stability around that area, then it can become very unstable. And that can lead to a whole host of problems. Now, in this instance, if you don't have stability in the outside, you could be looking at problems with lower back pain, you could be looking at knee pain, you could be looking at ankle pain. All of these things start to become an issue. What your body tends to do after a while, if it's weak in this area, is it'll start collapsing your knees in, so that when you go to walk up a steep hill, for example, your knees fall towards each other, and it's using your skeletal structure to try and hold you in place because it doesn't have the strength out here to be able to hold you in position. The other problem then comes when you do things that are a bit more advanced, like squats. Your knees can end up in that wrong position again, and because of that, your kneecap, your patella, starts to track incorrectly. The tendons start to track incorrectly, and you end up with pain in your knees. And then if that does start to happen, even if you don't get pain, but you've got this incorrect posture in the knees, that can continue down, and then you get poor posture in your ankles, so then you get pain in your ankles. But if you're completely unbalanced here, then essentially your upper body now has poor stability, and that's where the back pain starts to kick in. So it can cause untold problems if you don't have strength here, and it is an area that gets completely neglected. Now, the way you could look at doing this is the way that was sort of typical in the 80s. If you remember morning television, I can't remember what it was called at the time, but I do remember Mad Lizzie was someone who did the kind of pre-Mr. Motivator, and even that might be lost in some of you, the sort of exercises that would be done at the time, you would be doing things where you'd maybe lie on the ground and you'd have one leg out straight and you'd lift your leg up into the air. Now that's called abducting from the hip. And when you're abducting the leg, you tend to, you have to use your glute medius in order to be able to do that. Unless the leg sort of tracks forward or something, but if it goes straight out to the side, you're going to end up using your glute medius. The problem with it is that when some people start doing that, because of the position you get into and because your body's sort of in the way and you're not completely flat, then a lot of people end up kicking, and you start using your body to sort of like throw your leg up. So you get momentum from the upper body, chucking your leg up into the air, and it's not as focused as it should be. This exercise sort of eliminates that. So the exercise we're going to look at today is a fixed chain hip abduction. Now the fixed chain here is based on the fact that the leg that you're working is going to be fixed to the floor. So your foot is planted on the floor, the other leg will be raised up, but that's not the one you're using. The one that's fixed on the floor, that's the side that you're working on, and because it's fixed, then you're only flexing from the hips and engaging the glute medius in order to draw your hip back in line to where it should be for an upright position. So I brought in a dining chair just for the sake of something for balance. You can literally use anything. You could use a countertop in the kitchen. You could use the top of a bookshelf. You could use the sink in a bathroom if you happen to do it while you're in there. It doesn't matter. It's just something for balance. You shouldn't be holding on to it. You shouldn't be putting much pressure on it. It's just to stop your upper body moving. To do the exercise, all you're looking to do is to slump into your hip. Now I do this an awful lot anyway when I'm talking quite often. I'll just slump into one hip. It's a very bad habit to get into. I try and stop myself all the time, but I do it. It's a habit that I've had for years, and it's a bad one to have. But in this instance, it's useful because what you're going to do is drop into that hip muscle, then draw consciously the muscle in and squeeze as you bring your hips back into a standing position. Hold it there for a second or two, drop back down, and then repeat. I'll show you what I mean. So hopefully that's clear what I'm doing there. You are literally just slumping into the hips, and that's all it is. It's not a knee exercise, so there shouldn't be any bend of the knee. The leg should stay still. It's not an upper body exercise, so there shouldn't be any shift in your upper body. You're literally just dropping into the hips. Think of that outer part of your glute muscle, squeeze it and draw your hips back to the central line. Hold it there, make sure you've got that connection, squeeze hard and drop back down again. You'll probably find that once you've done 3 or 4 reps, you might not have felt anything, but keep going with it. And if you get to about 7 or 8, you should start to find that there's an engagement there. You might find it earlier if they're particularly weak, but if you're getting to sort of like 10 or 12 and you still can't feel anything, then maybe either you're doing it wrong or you're pretty strong in that area. If you are strong, then what I'd suggest is that you need some kind of resistance against you, in which case you would look to use the object that you're using here and tie a band around it. Now, if you don't have anything to tie onto, theoretically you could hold it in your thumb, but you want enough space to get it round the hip and it's looped around your body, and that way when you drop down you can push against the band as you come back up. But that's for another time. Try these at the moment. What I'm looking to give at the moment is some exercises you can do that you can do, number 1 at home, number 2 with no equipment, and number 3, because you can carry this out at any time, you can literally do it all the way through the day. So that's what I suggest doing. Aim for about 20 reps. If you only get to 15, that's fine. Aim for 20 reps each time you do it though, and if your form starts to go, just stop at whatever number you're on. If you find that one hip is stronger than the other, then continue to start in future exercises on the weak side first. See how many you can do on that side and then aim to match it on the strong side. Give it a shot, see how you go, but if you can keep this up for 3 or 4 weeks, you should start to find a noticeable difference in the strength around here, and your posture will thank you for it, and any sort of pain or niggles that you've got in your knees or your hips or your back might just start to dissipate just from this one exercise. So I strongly recommend giving it a go. It's something you can fit into your day quite easily because you could be doing it anywhere. If you're waiting for a bus or a train, you could be doing it. If you're waiting for the kettle to boil, you can be doing it. If you just want to get up from your computer for a couple of minutes, get up, do this, go for a little walk, sit back down, crack on with your work. It's very simple exercise, but very effective. Don't let it deceive you how simple it is, but please give it a shot. Try and fit it into your day, even if it's only 2 or 3 times a day. You'll see remarkable changes over the coming weeks. So give it a shot, see how you get on. If you get any issues with it, come back to me, let me know how you're doing, and we can discuss from there.